just wanna love you, just wanna hold you, just wanna be with you till we grow old.
Hi guys, my name is Kayla, my husband's name is Ben, and I created this channel to give myself an outlet to talk about our infertility journey and everything that we're going through to try and have a baby. And I made this channel so that hopefully I can connect with other women who are going through the same things that I am, or if any other women are going through the same things that I've already been through, like I can try and help them through them and share my knowledge that I've gained from it. So that's just kind of what I'm hoping to do with this channel, and just kind of like get into the trying to conceive community and really find some support. I do have some support through my family and a few friends, but sometimes it's just, unless you're going through it, you don't really understand a lot of things. So I just really wanted to share my experiences, and I would love to hear about other women's experiences. I do watch a lot of videos from women who are trying to conceive and going through similar things as me, and I just think it may be valuable for some women if I share my story as well. So this first video is just going to be an overview of our trying to conceive journey and everything that we've been through this far, especially myself. I guess I'll just jump right in. Probably the best place to start would be whenever I was 19. That was in 2009, and I was first diagnosed with PCOS. And I feel like a lot of women who are going through infertility struggles have PCOS. Like, it's so common, and it can be so heartbreaking to go through and have to deal with, for sure. So I was first diagnosed in 2009 by my OBGYN with blood work, and they actually had me do it twice because the first time they thought I was diabetic, and the second time I went back and I was not diabetic. But they did confirm PCOS through my hormone levels, and they told me that the best treatment at that time was birth control, because I was not trying for a family. I was only 19, and so they started me on low estrogen FE actually, and I took that for a while, probably, like, I say a while, I don't mean like that long, like 3 months I think. That was in October of 2009 that I got diagnosed. So I ended up moving to Arkansas to be with my family again, because at that time I was living in Louisiana with my mother. I had just graduated high school and I wanted to change, so I moved to Louisiana. And after that I moved back home to Arkansas, and I had to see a doctor here because the low estrogen was causing me to bleed a lot throughout my cycle, and it just was like I was bleeding for weeks at a time and it just wouldn't stop. So she changed me over to orthotricycline, which I think the generic is Trisprintec, and I took that and I didn't have any issues. So from then on, like, I was pretty much on Trisprintec whenever I was taking birth control. I did not like the side effects of birth control, but I took it for the most part just because I was supposed to help with my PCOS. So fast forward 5 years to 2014, and I wasn't taking my birth control, and I was with someone long term, and I found out I was pregnant, and it was a complete shock, complete surprise. It was not planned at all in the least. So I found out and told him that night, because I was still living at home with my parents. I would go stay with him whenever he wasn't working. He was a firefighter, but so he worked like 1 day on, 2 days off, but whenever he was working I pretty much stayed with my parents. And I found out while I was at home one morning. So I told him that night, and I had no idea how far along I was because my periods were so irregular. He told his mom, which she just happened to work at the clinic where my OBGYN was, so she was gonna find out anyway, so we told her, and she was okay with it. Like, she didn't really care. She wasn't worried about it. So I went in to confirm pregnancy, and they confirmed pregnancy through a urine sample and through blood work. And like started me on a prenatal, kind of like the regular stuff they do for like a first visit. And yeah, and they told me that they wanted me to come back in 2 more days for more blood work and just to kind of like monitor my levels and make sure that they were increasing right. So 2 days later I went back. I think if I remember correctly, my first blood draw, my level was only 88. And then whenever I went back 2 days later for blood draw, his mom called me with the results and she said it was 116. And I was like, okay, is that good? And she said, well, typically you want it to double every 2 days, every 2 to 3 days. And she's like, but we want you to come back in 2 days for another blood draw just to see what the numbers are doing. So I was like, okay. So like I didn't really panic, but I started Googling, I think like most women do. And I had to like kind of read some threads because there's not really much information out there on the internet for women who are trying to conceive and like have all these questions about things. There's really not much information. All you'll find is like baby center threads or like other types of threads from women who've had experiences and they're asking questions or they're offering advice to other women. And most of them were not good for whenever you didn't have numbers that doubled. So I kind of knew like it wasn't looking good at that point. So I went back in 2 days later and did more blood work, and my number, actually I think that's when I had started bleeding, the day before I was supposed to go back in. And my boyfriend at that time was at work. He was on call, so he was at the fire station, and I texted his mom and I was like, I'm bleeding, I don't know what to do. And she's like, well, come over here. And she's like, I'll get in touch with your doctor, because she was her nurse. And she's like, I'll see what we need to do. So I went over there and the doctor said it's fine. Bleeding can be normal. The only time, that you should really worry about it is if there's clots. And at that point there weren't any. So I just kind of stayed over there for a little bit. He did have 2 younger brothers that were still living at home, so I just kind of hung out with them and we watched movies. And then later the clots came, and then I like knew, and I kind of broke down and I like cried, and it was just a really hard night. And she wanted me to stay over there with her just so I wasn't alone. I never did tell my parents or my family or anything like that about it because it was just so early, and we weren't married and I didn't want my family to feel weird about it, so or like to hear any kind of negative comment about being pregnant, even though I was 24, like I wasn't a child. So I just made the decision not to tell them. I did tell my sister and a few really close friends, but that's about it. So she knew that I hadn't told my parents, so I just stayed there, and I stayed bleeding the whole night. I ended up not sleeping very well. If you've ever been through a miscarriage, even early, for me at least, it was very painful. It's what I would expect like early labor to feel like, because it was way more intense than like any period cramps I've ever experienced. And it kept me awake that it hurt so bad. So the next day I went in and I did my blood work like I was supposed to, and she called me later that day and confirmed that I did miscarry, but that I needed to go back in because I have a negative blood type and I needed to get my RhoGAM shot. My boyfriend at the time was there, and he ended up leaving that evening to go to work, and then I didn't see him for a while. So it was a very hard time for me. It was a really low part in my life, and it made it very difficult that I didn't have that support from the person I was dating. Like, he left for work that night, and then I didn't hear from him for like 2 months because he worked. He may have been upset, but he didn't really act like it. But he kind of drowned himself in work, and then he was also in the military, so he went to annual training for 2 weeks and then came back and worked more. And like, it's no excuse for him not to talk to me. So like, I was really upset about it, and it was really hard to grieve the loss on my own. but it was a learning point for me, and from that point forward, I said that I'm not gonna even risk the chance of having another child with someone whenever I'm not married to them, because I did not want to go through that alone again. It was definitely the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through by myself. So fast forward, and again, that was in 2014. I had my miscarriage in 2014. They never did tell me how far along I was, by the way, and I never knew because I was so irregular. Fast forward to October 2015, and I meet my husband that I'm currently married to. His name is Ben. We started dating in October 2015. Actually, our first date was on Halloween, and we got married June of 2017. We got engaged January of 2017. So January of 2017, after we got engaged, is when we stopped everything. We stopped being careful. So technically a doctor would say that that's trying time, even if you're not like timing anything. If you just stop using any kind of protection or contraceptives, then you're trying. So we technically started trying in January of 2017. We got married in June, and we started trying because we like didn't care at that point. Like, we both are very family oriented. We both wanted kids pretty badly. So we didn't really care if I was pregnant during our wedding. Like, it wasn't a big deal to us. So we started trying in January of 2017, and after we got married in June, I decided that I would start like getting serious about trying, and like I bought ovulation tests. Like, I researched a lot on like what you should do to try and help yourself get pregnant even with PCOS. So I ordered ovulation strips off of Amazon, and I also ordered a temping thermometer, and I started temping every day and started doing ovulation tests every day. Like, I probably started that in like mid-July after we got married, and back from my honeymoon. So I did those for July, August, and then September, and I didn't have much luck with it, honestly. In that 3-month time frame, I had one period, but I never got a positive ovulation test. And at that point in September, I made an appointment with my doctor to talk to her about it, about what I could be doing wrong, what we could do differently to try and conceive. So I had my appointment in October of 2017. And when I went in, I was talking to her about everything that I tried and like what we could possibly try to be successful in having a kid. And she said that that was pretty much, I was doing what I could on my own. Like, and by the way, I was already taking prenatals. I've been taking prenatals for a couple of years. She told me that was a good multivitamin for women, even if you're not pregnant or trying to conceive. She said that prenatals were great, so I was taking those. Couldn't hurt, right? So she said that what we were doing was pretty much what she would recommend if we weren't doing anything yet, and the fact that we had been doing it. And she knew I had PCOS, so I wasn't ovulating regularly or having regular periods, and then we tried temping and ovulation strips to try and catch any ovulation that I would have, and I wasn't catching anything because I just wasn't ovulating. So she said at that point in October, she was comfortable with starting me on metformin to try and help with my PCOS, and it's been shown to help women with PCOS like get a period and kind of regulate your cycle by regulating your insulin levels. She said we could do just metformin, she said, or she was comfortable with me taking Clomid, which is a fertility medication to induce ovulation.
My life was great till you added color.